Welcome to My Wild Magic with me, your host, Adrienne Cobb. Join me on a journey back home to your truest self in this inspiring, enlightening, and entertaining show. After a near-death experience in a car crash at 15 years old, I made a choice to stay and brought back with me 3 simple truths that I found from the other side. Love is all there is. Our time is over here quicker than we think, and we all have a purpose, a soul blueprint to fulfill. On this show, you will find a higher purpose, a creative expression, and unique soul attributes that you can bring forth into this world. Stay tuned with me for the next hour and find your higher purpose on My Wild Magic, starting now. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me and my special guest today, Rajie Kabil. And so she is founder of Wholehearted Media and HouseofRajie. You can look at that at HouseofRajie.com. And she is a personal and professional spiritual lifestyle, being able to work with people, celebrating, inspiring, and showcasing what living an aligned, harmonious existence with life as a multifaceted, multidimensional being can look like, which is, that's a lot to take on there, Rajie. Yeah, pretty cool. She is also a well-traveled global storyteller, certified HeartMath, and accelerated evolution coach and yoga meditation teacher. So Rajie, welcome. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me. Super excited to see you and talk to you.
Yeah, right. So, so one of the things that we were going to be looking at today that it sounds like you have been working with people on is, for one, really being in that heart-centered alignment. That may be the first thing we kind of want to talk about, but also moving into how to take care of, nurture, be present to our own inner child, which is great. Because I find that in our humanity, it's all relationship oriented, but when you haven't learned how to take care of your own inner child, we do set other people, friends, partners, people, work people up to do that for us.
Totally. You nailed it. And they start filling these roles in our life that they don't necessarily need to. And I think it's all part of that coming into yourself, coming into your sovereignty. I know that word is being used a lot these days, but like, what does that actually mean? And so I've taken deep dives with that word and other facets of radical responsibility for my life. The minute that I decided and chose that I am responsible for every single thing in my life, it was one of the most empowering acts and thoughts and concepts, beliefs that I had. While it was like, man, really, I'm responsible for everything. Like, yeah, and it's okay. It's okay. And that's when I talk about the parenting yourself. That has to come in because, we're super hard on ourselves sometimes, Adrienne, and we all grew up with some aspect of mother or father. Maybe some of us, it wasn't as conventional, but mistakes were made along the way. And now we can course correct. And now we have the maturity. Now we have the awareness. Now we have the consciousness. Now we have the love, presumably as we grow in our spiritual evolution, to be that loving, kind, assertive, gentle, open parent to ourselves. So that's sort of a little bit.
So the big thing that I'm hearing you say is that you really shattered some core belief systems. When you realize that you're ultimately responsible, that's going to immediately shatter tons of belief systems in one fell swoop. So what was that like for you? Like, what kind of brought you to that point?
Well, I was in this point in my life where I was blaming my parents for everything. Like, I have gone through such a transformation with my mom and dad. And in my early 20s, I hated them. I blamed them for everything. It was their fault. I didn't have the best of this. And like, I was just always complaining, and I needed someone to offload on. They didn't give me enough care. They didn't even want me. Like, all of these stories in a way, which helped propel me to eventually leave Toronto altogether and start a new life in a different country, because you know, that was the best course of action at that time. I super ran away from my problems, like a lot. It was my default.
Yeah.
Run away from relationships, run away from bad jobs I didn't like, just run away and everything will be fine. No, it doesn't work like that. It eventually catches up to you. So
Yeah.
when I started taking like full responsibility for my life, it was a combination of leaving a dream job, leaving a relationship, starting on my own freelance journey, like leaving the 9 to 5 and really going forth and following my heart, no matter what. And that was like a caveat. So I was at a low point in my life. And, you know, there's a martial arts saying that I love. And it's like, when you think you're at the bottom, you're really at the top. And when you're at the top, you're really at the bottom. So I always, that always ruminates in my head. And, you know, hindsight, I could see that I was strong in that low point.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, there's a lot of transitions that were happening in my life, and I had no choice, because whatever I was doing up here wasn't really working. And I had done plant medicine, and I've been a meditator for, at that time, like over 10 years. And so I had spiritual practices, but something was missing. Something like, why was I still so unsatisfied? Why was I still wrestling with internal conflict, you know, feeling this one way but acting a different way? When I started dialing into the fact that my actions and my words were not lining up, that's where I was like, okay, stop right there. We need to look at this, because it's going to translate into my work, it's going to translate into my relationships, translate to my health. And so I really needed to take a look at that. And it was as simple as making a declaration. You know, I love doing that. I love literally writing out, especially, you know, using full moon, new moon times, like on this day, at this time, at this location, I, Rajie Kabil, hereby declare X, Y, and Z for me. And this is why, hear me now type thing. So that's all part of the spiritual empowerment that started to come through. And yeah, I hope
yeah. So basically then it sounds like when you left Toronto, you went to another country. Yeah. And that sounds like that kind of catalyzed you into what I would sort of also say is like the hero's journey, which all humans kind of, if they're brave enough, go on. And there's an excellent book called The Destiny Giver, where this guy, he kind of uses it like a parable. Mm-hmm. So no one wants to become somebody. So nobody wants to become somebody, and he goes on this journey. But just like with all the tales in the Bible and all the different tales in mythology and all the tales that have been trained by the indigenous people, there's this thing that happens in our nervous system. Like, first you have to go up against your parents and your local community, and they don't want you to go and they want you to stay, and and then you push against them and you go, and then you're like, oh my God, I'm so alone, and you get past that, and then there's like these big giants in life, and then there's bullies, and there's this and that. So there's like literally, like in the human journey, there's these things that our nervous system, like it's just almost like inevitably sort of plays out this way in our collective. And it sounds like you are for sure on the hero's journey, and maybe really more on the, you know, a more fulfilling end of that right now. So you went to another country, but what was it that actually got your attention? Like, you've explained some of it, but was there any kind of moment that really just ignited for you?
That it's time to leave.
It's time to leave. It's time for me to take responsibility for my life. Was there a book you read, somebody you talked to, a certain life experience? Like, I know it's a multiple things, but was there one thing that kind of catalyzed it for you?
Definitely. I would have to say it was the first time I got my heart broken, and I loved him so much. And it was devastating when he just stopped paying attention to me and started partying and going out. It was our first year of university. And, you know, I was like, hey, like, what about me? And I felt so abandoned, and all these issues started coming up. And I started smoking weed and getting into like different crews of people that I normally wouldn't hang out with. So I started going down this path. But
And then your parents told you.
yeah, exactly. While all of this is going on, I'm like reading about Buddhism. What is this thing called meditation? Should I follow the eightfold path to enlightenment? And what is this thing, the universe, that apparently loves me and can hear me all the time? And I'm like, what? And so it was How to Know God. No, it was Synchrodestiny by Deepak Chopra, which like blew my mind. And that was the first time I even fathomed that there's a universe out there that I can communicate with. And it was like, I was done. I was like, whoa, there's something out there that loves me. Like no matter what,
Yeah. Now you're woke. You're woke to that fact. Yeah.
I
Right.
want to find that. Yeah. Okay. Because I was so hurt. I was like, nobody loves me. I'm not lovable. But then I read that, hey, there's something out there. And I was like, oh, what is this? And then here comes the seeker, like just hardcore reading books, listening to speakers, constantly journaling, evaluating my own process of in my meditations. The meditations started to become very I find that when you're first starting the path, the meditations become like tantalizing in a way, or they start like, I was having experiences. I would get tingles, and I would, different experiences would happen, which kept drawing me in even more. Like, ooh, what is this? And then it was How to Know God, again by Deepak Chopra, which really like opened things up. And then as I'm reading through old journals, I started noticing I would refer to God as Father and the universe as Mother. And that was like a real game changer for me, because here I was left at the age of 22 because there's nothing here for me. There's no one here for me. I'm on my own. I'm gonna go start a new life in South Korea, across the world, in a country that doesn't speak really English. I don't speak South Korean or Korean, but I'm gonna go because there's something more out there, and I'm gonna go find out. And so when I got there, whoa, I think I cried for like the first 2 days, because I was like,
sure, yeah.
what did I do? Yes, and I missed my family and I missed everyone. By the way, everything has completely changed with my parents. We are best friends.
No,
Like,
I
it's
get
like,
it.
whoa, what
When
a
I
journey.
do think that when you start working on your own inner child, it does heal these relationships to the generational, our heritage and stuff. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back in just a minute to continue this really awesome conversation with finding self, finding God, finding the universe. We'll be back in just a moment. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. And we have Rajie with us. She is an amazing storyteller. She is really talking to us about the universe, the divine, coming into our own, and specifically really kind of how to parent our own inner child. So on our way to getting to how to parent our inner child, in terms of your journey, it sounds as though it sort of kind of got birthed in a sense through heartache, love, the most powerful healer of all, and caused you to move to South Korea, where you just cried and opened up your energy there.
Yep.
But in doing all that, it sounds as though what we were talking about on the break is really sort of meeting that part of ourselves that feels so unworthy of love. So can you say anything about that in terms of your experience of that and what you think about it in humanity?
Totally. Thank you. Just to close that loop with the South Korea, within the first week and prior to leaving, like me, mom and dad had a very intense conversation. They were crying. I was crying. They're like, please don't go. Don't do this. Go to teachers college, do this first. And I had just finished my degree. No, I want to do this. It's what, I really, really want to do this. 22 years old. And I had just finished Landmark as well. That was the first thing that I kind of did. And then I got to South Korea within the first week. Me and dad got on the phone and he said something that I had been waiting for years. And it was, I'm proud of you. And
Wow.
and just to hear that, I was like, okay, like the rest of this journey in South Korea, it could be the best thing, could be the worst thing. I don't care. But
I know this
that was
crying thing is done now. I got
yeah.
that
I
proud vote. Yeah.
Yeah, but and it made me think like, wow, kids do so many things just to hear I'm proud of you from their parent. And it bothers me. That really bothered me a lot. And then I had to accept it and stuff. But let's fast forward a little bit. So South Korea, and let's talk about love. Like at this point in my life, love, it was like an enigma. It like shows up sometimes. Most of the time, it's not there. I have to fight for it. I need it. I think I need it, but then most times I'm rejecting it because I'm like, no, I'm a lone wolf. I'm on my island by myself because no one can hurt me. So I
Yeah.
didn't even realize how closed and how walled up my heart was, even though I'm doing these meditations, even though I'm going to
True that. I
workshops.
get it.
You know what I mean? It's
Yes.
like
Yes, I
wild,
do.
right? It's like we're
Yeah.
doing so much work, but without even realizing like how strong our walls are. But
And how
then
to
I
be
guess
present. It sounds like, we can do all the spiritual work without really fully being present in our heart.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What is that all about?
Yeah.
So you're working from here. So I love
Yeah.
thinking. My overthinking has gotten much better. I love analyzing. It's part of like my journalistic side as well. And so I came to a point in my life where I was done with the job that I was in. The relationship had completely dissolved. And I knew that there was more. And I was just tired of my mind a little bit. Cause I'm like, whatever I'm doing up here ain't working. I need help. There's got to be more. What is it? And I came into contact with HeartMath. But even prior to coming into contact with HeartMath, I didn't even realize as I was jumping from South Korea back to Toronto, lived in Japan, back to Toronto, moved to BC, and back to Toronto. I'm like, all these shifts was me following my heart, because what other guidance could I go on? Like I could analyze the crap out of it, but I knew that something already knew that there's a feeling and I need to go with that feeling, even though no one understands it, even though I don't even understand it sometimes. I still have to go because I'm a seeker and I'm an explorer and life's an adventure. And I want to see what this universe thing is and how much we can play, how much,
Yeah.
what is this dance? So HeartMath comes in. I'm like, wow, look at these guys. They're a wonderful organization.
This is heartmath.org. So that's
Yep.
HeartMath.org. You can look them up. They have a lot of really cool products, books, ways to test out your stress level, your heart monitor, and to bring you into harmonic resonance with your heart and your head.
Yep.
Fantastic organization. It's been around for many years, very well qualified, and highly recommend checking them out. Yeah. So go ahead.
So the first technique that you usually learn with HeartMath is heart focused breathing. Heart focused breathing, new baseline was created, and I noticed very quickly changes. It's like when I would go into a tough interview or a stressful meeting of some sort, I would do some heart focused breathing. And at this point, I would close my eyes and just 3 minutes, and going into that conversation completely changed vibes, change energy. And then I started practicing it all the time. And now, like right now, I'm in my heart. But it took a lot of practice, and you can be standing in line, eyes open, but still
So give me an
being
example of the 3-minute heart breathing that you do. I do one too, coming from HeartMath. Yeah, it's really awesome. So tell me your technique.
okay. So eyes open, eyes closed. Bring all your attention and awareness to the center of your chest, into your heart space. And you just imagine your breath is flowing in and out of your heart.
Mm-hmm.
You can just see it. And then sometimes you can feel your spirit or your being drop into your heart. And then you're breathing a little bit slower, a little bit more deep. I've even noticed, Adrienne, sometimes let's say I'm talking to somebody and it's a conflicting situation, I realize I'm not in my heart. I drop into my heart while we're interacting, and I have seen it with my own eyes. The conversation completely shifts.
Yeah,
This other
absolutely.
person just feels it, and
They do.
people and people are drawn to people, that are open-hearted. Listen, our hearts naturally want to be open. Like our heart's
They
natural
do.
disposition is like this
Yeah,
big,
right. Yeah.
but
It
you know
is.
what it feels
But
like
that's
to
part of who we are.
exactly, but you know how
Yeah.
it feels to come into contact with a contracted heart, right? You
Yeah.
can feel it, but we're hurt. We got hurt. Somebody told us something one time at one place, and we shut down. And so our whole life, we're just kind of trying to open. Now, why I love HeartMath so much is because it gave me the science behind all of it. So, for example, the heart emits a frequency that can be measured up to 3 feet outside of the body. They think it's much more, but right now they can measure 3 feet. And it's our field. Well, a lot of things live in this field. Predominantly, our emotions live in this field. So we're just like walking around interacting with each other's fields. And so the minute that you come into harmony, coherence, it's a completely different vibe. And you have the ability to help shift, or I don't know if elevate's the right word, but you have the capacity to actually help somebody just by your
It does
energy and
raise the
just by your presence.
vibration. It does raise the
It does,
vibration.
right.
Lower.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's another part to this heart story. And so I got the science that I needed from HeartMath, and then I got the spiritual soul aspect of heart through Journeys into the Heart, and working with Daniel Mattel and Luke Sellers and these guys who run workshops about the tiny space of the heart. I had no idea about this tiny space of the heart.
What's that? Tell us. What is it?
Yeah, so there's a lower heart and there's an upper heart.
Oh, yeah.
And chambers, and you can go into them. And this is where you can access like Akashic records and meet guides and travel the cosmos in a way. It's your home essentially. And I remember the first time I ever got into my heart, I was guided by a very amazing teacher, and I got into my heart and I just cried.
So give us an example. So we got our heart breath flowing. I'm just asking everybody who's listening right now, just breathe in and out of your heart, get that flow going. Okay, now help us get to that sacred chamber.
Okay, so bring all your awareness to the center of your brain. And imagine it's like a house, and you are a house, and you're at the attic, and you're at the top, and it's dark, and you're right in the center. And the walls are like really far away, and you're right in the center. Feel that. And the right in front of you, a golden spiral staircase forms. Like, go there. And start descending down this beautiful golden spiraling staircase. Keep going, and passing your nose, passing your throat, coming into your chest cavity. And you start to like feel like, whoa, you're coming to something pretty epic. It's your heart. It's your heart. So dropping down, there's, let's say, a platform to the left. So hang a left, and then a doorway. That's the doorway to your heart. Hold on to the handle. Push it open. Don't hesitate. Go in now and close the door behind you. Take a look. Feel around. Maybe ask for the lights to be turned on. What shows up? Is there trees? Can you feel the wind? Can you hear the ocean? Are there animals? This is your sanctuary.
Yeah. Boy, I just get chills after chills walking into that room. That is awesome.
Right. I
Oh,
know. So I
yeah, I
cried and
love that.
I
Yeah.
opened my eyes from that first meditation, and I'm looking around at like the other 8 people. No one's really reacting. The teacher looks at me, sees
Oh,
my reaction, because I was like, what have I been doing for 8 years
yeah, yeah,
meditating?
yeah, yeah.
What was that?
Okay, so
And
on that note, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in just a moment with an open heart and connected spirit with
yes.
Rajie. Right back. Welcome back. So, Rajie, do you work with people? Do you work with people at all? Do you do workshops? Do you work with people individually? Do you, yeah, any way that people can get in touch with you, what you offer? If you can tell them.
So I have a few different offerings on my website. My website is www.houseofrajie.com.
And that's Ragie, House of Rajie. I'm sorry, Rajie. Yeah, a little dyslexic there. Yeah.
All good. Of Rajie, HouseofRajie.com. And yeah, you can book a one-on-one with me, and I'm going to be launching a group thing very soon. Part of me, like even doing this interview live, like, I mean, like I do on camera work, like my journalistic self, but this is super close to my heart. And so you're catching me in a moment of like, just getting comfortable talking about things I really, really, really love to talk
Well,
about
I'm
and
so
care
glad
about.
to, yeah,
Thank you.
create a platform for that. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
awesome. So,
thank you. Super appreciate that. So yeah, there's a bunch of different products on the website, and I love working with people.
and one-on-one, what kind of thing do you do with them?
It really depends on what they need. I like to start off with just a simple, like, what's going on in your life. Most people have some type of emotional issue that's going on, or they're in transition. Maybe they're leaving a job, they just got divorced, they just moved countries. There's some transition that's been going on. So I help them integrate. A lot of the work that I do is integration work. So we're integrating aspects that are kind of floating out there, whether it's unworthiness, unlovable, or rejection or abandonment, these patterns and issues that keep reoccurring in our lives. Well, we can integrate them. It's not about rejecting them. These are showing up. Believe it or not, they have a positive intention for you.
Right. Which actually, we were just talking in the break about, rites of passage and initiations. And sometimes that divorce, that breakup, that move to another country, that loss of something or somebody,
Yes.
are oftentimes the initiations we're speaking of that maybe, I think, we were just talking about how a lot of times people probably blame the situation for their life being bad.
Yeah.
Instead of, really seeing it as a tool that actually helps their soul evolve. So it sounds like you help people to kind of come back into the rites of passage.
Yes, take
in
your
their life.
rights. Yeah, and we were just talking about the fact that society isn't, as it is right now, isn't really set up for the adult to fully be a recognized, realized adult in a way. There's a lot of like emotionally distraught humans walking around, and they say that your emotional intelligence level, you can tell by like the trauma that happened at a young age can be realized by the way that the person is reacting emotionally to a situation, the adult. If you're acting like a 7-year-old, you're acting like like a 5-year-old, well, maybe something happened back then. And that could be like a little starting place to look at when you want to be better. You want to be better for yourself, you want to be better for your kids, you want to be better for your husband or wife. And so I think that leads the person down this path of personal development, which ultimately leads to, I think, spiritual evolution. and, finding the divinity. What is the divine? How is the divine connected to me? Am I divine? Well, is she divine? Is he divine? And so
Even when we're not getting our way about something.
even when we're not getting
Because they're divine and they're lovely up until that moment, I find, for a lot of people.
Yes, but
Can
you cultivate enough compassion for that individual's experience? Can you view them with the eyes of they're a conscious being with choice, just like I'm a conscious being with choice? And so it's their also right to choose what they want. And you have the right to choose. You can get up and leave. You can choose to stay and listen and work it out and talk it out and stuff. I really I like helping people becoming empowered.
So I have a question about that, right? So as we're learning how to kind of teach like how to raise our own inner child, I'm curious, like, where do you give that, like when you do have parents, either who's made life transitions or they're still in form, where do they sort of fit in your life once that happens? Like what goes on when you start literally taking that role away from them in a way to basically parent your own child in a way that matches your soul's evolution, your inner energy? What happens to that relationship with the parents or family?
You know what happens? They become your friend, and they
nice.
become a freaking awesome ally that you can finally be open with and feel accepted and loved and cared for, because guess what? You did it for yourself. So it's okay.
Right. So who wouldn't want that? And I'd imagine that the parents feel very successful having children who are coping in the world, managing in the world, living in the world on their own terms. You know what I mean? Yes. So I think sometimes we think that parents want to control us, micromanage us, tell us what to do, or maybe they're completely absent. But, it seems as though they only do that if they feel out of control of your well-being. But the minute you start taking responsibility, they actually aren't probably near as controlling, don't even want the headache of trying to control you, because it's such a nightmare trying to control children, for any parent. It really is hard on them. Got to have a little compassion. Yeah.
It's so true. And literally last month on my birthday, I had a conversation. As you know, I'm in Mexico right now. My parents are in Ontario, Canada. We were talking, me and dad, and he said something that I had been waiting almost my whole life, again, to hear many, many years, because there's a whole other conversation that we can have around marriage. And in my culture, if you could be the CEO of Google, but if you're not married and have kids, it doesn't freaking matter. Wow. So there's a whole other like dynamic of like, when you're going to settle down. This one question would send me on a tailspin of what is settling down. So we would go back and forth. And on my birthday last month, we're talking, and all of a sudden my dad says, I'm done. Like, I don't want to ask you about marriage anymore. If you want to get married, get married. You don't want to get married, it's okay. I just want to see you happy.
Wow, that must be huge, considering the cultural, generational pressure.
Yes, I didn't even believe him. I felt so bad. So I was like, what? I was like, Dad, are you sure? I was like, and he's like, what do you mean, are you sure? And I was like, no, I'm serious. Like, because in the past he's said, these types of things, but then it was coming from a place of like hurt and like, like, oh, I don't care, like in that way. So when he's like, I just want to see you happy. You're doing awesome. You are doing your life and continue. And that we are home. You have a home anytime you want to come back. And I just was.
I mean, it's so great to have that much support, that much acceptance. And for him to even be able to, in his own mind, take off the generational pressure. Because, sometimes people, they're as good of a parent, like their children make them as good as they are as a parent. So if their children isn't doing what society says, the parent sucks, right? In their culture. Yeah. So that was even huge for him, a lot of freedom for him.
Totally, because he's
Yeah,
like, I don't want to worry anymore, and my health, and he's the one that said it, and I was just like in awe and shock. And another thing, Adrienne, is that I think children also, we're here for our parents' evolution as well,
absolutely.
and as much as they're helping and guiding us on our paths, I have pushed my parents
Oh
so
yeah.
much,
Them
to
both. Yeah,
yes, in my lifestyle, in the way that I speak
exactly.
and everything. And so, yeah, I'm
That's
gonna leave it at
excellent.
that. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that
yeah,
was,
yeah.
um,
So we've looked at HeartMath. We've looked at how you come into the chamber of the Sacred Heart, that it's really your home. So we've
yes,
got a couple things kind of in, kind of like built up in our system that people can actively sort of practice now. I'm assuming these are good foundations if you want to be a parent to your own inner child,
yes,
because the inner
very,
child relates very much to love, feeling safe,
yeah,
being present in your body.
yeah.
So
So
even with
some of,
people who are very spiritual, sometimes there might be that sense of being spiritual, but being out of your body. And the
mm,
inner child doesn't feel very safe with that a lot of times. So I really like the way you're breathing through the heart, bringing that dissension. Instead of us sending out of our body, we're really about descending our spirit into form and having these magnificent experiences. And that's really where maybe the wounded inner child becomes the magical child.
yes,
You know,
exactly, and that's where
miracles happen.
it was in my heart that I encountered, after a whole plant medicine ceremony, where I encountered my inner child. Plus, the Christ consciousness is also sort of tied into this as well. But it was in my heart that little 5-year-old Raj is like running around, having fun, doing her thing, and so there's like high self, little Raj, and me, and sometimes I'm just the observer, and here's the three of us in this beautiful magical space, like in my sanctuary, in my heart, like the ocean's over there, there's a waterfall over there, there's a beautiful forest, and there's like a green meadow with like flowers, and it's always there. And when I go in, I'm like, oh, nice. And then she is running around and like playing and stuff, but when there's something going on, meaning there's a disharmony or a point of contention that needs some healing, if there's some hurt going on, the three of us come together. Essentially we're one, but sometimes they fracture, just so we can communicate in the best and most optimal way. And usually the healing will take place as a light and touch, and there's a hug and an embrace of some sort, and then once the embrace happens, the merge happens. So yes, we start
That's
off separate, but then it
beautiful.
merges.
Okay, so we're going to take a quick break on that note. We're going to come back and go just right into that. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're listening to My Wild Magic with Adrienne. You can check out what I have to offer at mywildmagic.com. Again, that's mywildmagic.com, doing one-on-one sessions, awesome quests, Hearts on Fire meditation group, and the Soul Blueprint. So we are with Rajie, and we are working with the inner child today and learning how to parent our inner child. And she was just taking us through this amazing kind of connection and seeing through the eyes of the inner child. So could just go straight back into where we left off, actually, because that was such a beautiful, I feel like we almost were there and then boom, had to go to a break.
Right. The suspense. I love it.
Yeah.
So we left off at the point of high self, me, inner child, and then there is a touch point. There's a physical, like there's a hug, and that's the
Like
merger.
a one heart breath. It's
One,
like you
exactly,
a hug and your breathing is one.
Exactly. And you said it so perfectly and beautifully, Adrienne. You said that it's instantaneous healing that can happen without the mind kind of coming in and saying, well, why is this happening? How is this happening? Who is this happening for? No, none of that. You just like relish in this perfect healing and Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's very emotional, and that's okay too. So we sort of touched on the fact that
Well, the touch point I think is important. One thing I've noticed in working with some clients around some of this as well is that the minute you bring in that higher presence with the inner child and you actually go into an embrace, what I found psychologically, emotionally, and even in the chemistry of your body is it creates a bonding. And when you think about coming into this world, if one or both parents was not completely present, they may not have been able to bond with you. So when you go in, what you just described was a beautiful way that we don't feel so alone in the world. We feel like we're bonding, not to the parent, but actually to the presence, our own higher presence. That's what I think the touch is really important, what you're saying.
So
I love that you're saying it so simply is just touch, just a hug.
Just a hug. How and then
So
like
healing.
yeah, it's so healing, and it's the feeling of it. You're not alone. And so doing that practice of whenever something would come up, like jealousy or resentment or anger in some instances, like I would go into that safe and sacred space in my heart and I would listen. So some of the stuff that the inner child needs is acceptance, is a huge one. It needs love. It needs to be heard, seen, acknowledged, because all of this ties back to self-worth issues coming back, from our earlier in the conversation. A lot of souls they don't feel worthy of being here, of even being alive. A lot of it is conditioning. But the mere fact that we are alive makes us worthy. And when I digested that one, it's still landing. It's still landing. And I love that because that feels like truth and a very important part of the heart, and why I'll never stop talking about it is the fact that I believe that truth resides in the center of our being.
So that's another important part. So sometimes people, particularly if they're mental or visual in their intuition or the way they process, they might be trying to do a lot of this in their head. But it feels like there is a really big difference in really centering yourself in the heart and doing this exercise of bringing your present moment self, your inner child, whatever age shows up, and your higher presence together in the heart center is really where the crux of the healing can take place, which is in the mind, you might understand some things, but in the heart, it sounds like it really heals it on a more cellular kinesthetic level. Is that right?
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. And I sort of touched on the Christ child being born or taking shape and form in a different way. It's like angelic in a way. It's still you. It's always you. And we sort of touched on the fact that after a certain amount of time, I realized that even my inner child has an evolution, and it's actually a master. So the inner child
run with that, go with that. Yes.
Is the master. This is the master child. And I'm like, oh my God, this 5-year-old Raj is like a little master doing her thing. And now I listen to her in the sense of like, okay, she's very wise. Because now that it's like, it's part of the merger that happens. Like we're always fragmented in a way, and then boom, we're always wanting the one, always the oneness.
And I think that we project that onto partnerships constantly. I want the one partner, but really when we come into wholeness, I have my presence, I have my inner child, I have my soul. It seems like from what I'm hearing you say that the minute maybe we even bring that inner child back in, it may be one of the final pieces particularly relevant to our emotional body, that when we bring that in, we kind of feel more whole, and we may stop maybe projecting outward that we have to have this thing or person.
Yes, to fulfill these other.
Which then all we do is we project onto that thing, that person, what we don't have, and of course play out these patterns. Right. Our parents actually onto them.
Exactly. Until you come into harmony with it, with the energies inside of yourself. And that's going back to the best parent ever. I ask myself this all the time when I'm going through like a hard time. freaking, yeah, I've gone through some stuff. And so I always ask myself, what would the best parent in the world say? What would the best parent in the world do? And then it shows up, like that the answers show up very quickly. Oh, the best parent in the world would say, just rest. You are doing great. You've done a lot today. Just go lie down. Okay. Or what would the best parent in the world do right now? They would make me a really delicious meal. Okay. Do that.
Yeah.
So you literally giving yourself what you need. And it sounds so pedestrian.
And I think that doing it
like,
I like what you're saying about doing it kind of like third person in terms of what would the best parent do for me in this moment, and then listening to that and then following through. So in a way you are being your own parent, but in a way you're really asking from this higher source, like a divine parent in a sense, what would it do for you? I love that really a lot, because I don't think that none of us really seem to take care of ourselves near as well as we maybe could.
Yeah, or we think we do.
In alignment for us.
Here's the thing: our
we're always
inner
pushing for acceptance. All that whole list that you just gave, we're always pushing for the approval, the acceptance, the love, the whatever. When in truth, if we just gave ourselves, I just love what you're saying. Say it again. Say it again.
Okay,
It's so awesome.
You need to give yourself acceptance. You need to give yourself, your inner child wants to be seen, heard, loved, acknowledged. And like for mine, at least, I think yours too, fun. Like fun is a huge part of it. And there's another thing. Oh yeah. Boundaries. Boundary, inner child actually.
Okay, so this is what I'm struggling with right now, actually. We're coming to our last 3 minutes, but I want to run this by you.
Tell me.
I think a lot of people who are empaths who might be interested in listening to this show are really going to relate to this. But for me, I have a tendency to want to caretake others. Oh, that person's in the hospice center. I pass them every day when I walk, and I should give him some chicken soup because I know he's not feeling well. Oh, this person is alone for whatever reason. Oh, this person, somebody died on this day. So I have 3 people right now in my immediate day that I feel like I should go do things for, right? But, if you're kind of listening to, again, from an empath, we do get caught up in trying to take care of other people, parent other people, so as empaths, how does this process work when it comes to taking care of others?
Well, the way that I
like boundaries. I mean, it sounds like you were talking about that. So it makes me feel like
boundaries and discipline. I feel like our inner child needs discipline sometimes, because we'll just run around as adults, we'll work all day and not eat, or we'll sleep a little bit too much and not be as active. So when I say boundaries, it's like, oh, I really want to do this. I really want to go visit my friend in the hospice, and I want to take care of this person, and you want to do all the things like a normal, growing child would want to do. But asking your inner best parent ever help, like ever. Yeah, what is the truth?
Just take care of myself today.
Go see one friend.
Go see one friend. Exactly.
And also, can we get rid of the word should? Like, why should you do anything? Why should you do anything?
Absolutely.
You could
do it.
Yeah.
I love it. So get rid of the word should, really start asking the best inner parent ever. So that's really kind of the golden key here of just taking the time to do that. So I am so upset that we're coming to the end of our show. I feel like I could talk to you for another 3 hours about this.
So much fun.
Actually, it really is. So if you want to do more work with Rajie, please go to HouseofRajie, RAJIE.com, HouseofRajie.com. And she would be more than happy to, in a very fun, playful, loving way, help you to heal the relationship and work with and come into your own master child self. Sounds like it would really help people in their partnerships, their family relationships, their work relationships.
Most importantly, I love working on the relationship with yourself, because that will inform everything else. And I have a help desk. I have a help desk on my website So check it out. You can book
Absolutely.
just like a really fast call, and I can help you get even direction on what are you actually seeking, because that's like a starting place. At least like you might feel like there's something more to life, but you're not sure. And so we can
Go
dial into
there.
what that is. Yes, thank you,
Okay.
Adrienne. This
Thank
was
you
so
so
fun.
much. Have a great rest of your day, everybody out there.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for tuning in to My Wild Magic with me, your host, Adrienne Cobb. Each one of us has a soul purpose on this earth and a higher purpose full of creative expression and unique soul attributes. Make sure to tune in next week on transformationtalkradio.com to continue your journey home to your truest self and pursue the path of unconditional self-love. If you would like to learn more about me, visit mywildmagic.com. Again, that's mywildmagic.com.